our speaker this morning is Jason Daniels, Executive Director of Access Framingham. Our discussion this morning will be the past, present, and future of community media. The program this morning will focus on ways in which local media plays a unique role in enriching their communities. As technology, media, and the news landscape dramatically shifts, the mission of community-based media is as relevant as ever. We're going to learn about the 50-year history of public access television in the U.S. and what it looks like today and what the future might hold. Jason Daniels is the executive of Access Framingham. He's a multimedia project manager, video artist, and community builder with 20 years of experience in community media. Previously, he had managed public access operations in Easton, Medfield, and Lowell. He is also the founder and producer of an international 100-second film festival since 2005. He has served on the national and regional boards of the Alliance for Community Media. Jason has lived in Framingham since 2018 and enjoys cooking, yoga, and independent animation. Please give a warm Brotherhood welcome to Jason Daniels.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Steve, and thank you, Bill. Thank you all for having me here today. I've been planning to try and attend this event for a number of years because it was, first of all, Bill Rapkin, who was one of the first faces that greeted me when I came to Access Framingham. We had a spot at Kugel's. We went and we ate. We talked about the history of Access Framingham and what it needed, and we were able to forge a friendship. And so I really appreciate everything that Bill's done for Access Framingham. And I will echo his sentiment that maybe you don't quite realize, but the TBA Brotherhood breakfast speeches, presentations really reach the community and people really enjoy them. They're very informative. So I would certainly hope that we find a way to make that continue. I know I gave Steve a big description of jargony, but basically what I want to talk about is the fact that local media matters. You know, I believe that community media is an anchor institution. It's a fundamental service for a healthy and functioning community. It's been my North Star in my professional life, and it guides my work here at Access Framingham. A little bit about me. I do live in Framingham with my wife, daughter, a couple of dogs and cats. And if you live near Ruth Drive, you may have seen a runaway chicken every now and then. I grew up in Canton. I was bar mitzvahed at Temple Beth Abraham. I spent my high school days drawing, wrestling, and on the math team. I went to Rutgers as a fine arts major with a focus on graphic design. I wanted to work for MTV, I thought. But once I was introduced to alternative video, independent media, and video art, you know, I was really transfixed by moving images and have been ever since. Following graduation, I had a brief stop at the now defunct Copy Cop in downtown Crossing. But in 2000, I worked my way to Avid Technology. That was located in Tewksbury, Mass at the time. And I bring that up because Avid is the company that invented computer-based editing. You know, it's a central tool. It's an industry standard now. All films, many TV shows, they're all edited on that. And I was able to be a tech support for them. So I learned everything about how to build a computer from the ground up and everything about how video worked. And as a perk, I got my own Avid, which was, you know, $100,000 piece of equipment on my desk. And that was at a time when a 36 gigabyte, not a 36 terabyte, but a 36 gigabyte drive was $1,000 and was the size of a shoebox. And just in the background, there's just one of the, a still from one of the videos that I worked on at the time. My next stop after 9/11, I had decided that I need to find my way some way out of the corporate world. And I started volunteering at Lowell's public access TV station. It was called LTC, which stands for Lowell Telecommunications Corporation. And there I learned about the broad vision for public access, more than just a TV channel. It was there I was really introduced to the term community media. After volunteering there for 6 months, I was hired as like the guy that does the meetings, I stayed there for 3 years, taking a number of jobs. I was the equipment guy. I was the director of the community media. I got to learn and meet all sorts of people. I realized how fun it was to be in this industry. And then I also got to, as Steve said, form the 100-second Film Festival. This is really a simple concept, but it is something that I really, really love, and maybe hope to bring it back to Framingham one day. But it's basically the idea that people can watch, create, and share 100-second films. In 2005, that was very short. We know what that means. 100 seconds now is quite long. I really enjoyed the experience, and when I was getting films, people were sending me things in packages, and now everything's online, and I can get films from a tiny corner in Pakistan, anywhere in the whole world. It's amazing. It's anywhere that there's a camera and an internet connection. In 2007, I was hired by Medfield TV to be their first executive director. They gave me a chance, and I will forever be grateful for that. Medfield's a very small town, and much of what mattered to that community revolved around the high school. And within the high school, of course, local sports is a huge deal. And so I wanted to acknowledge one of the people that was instrumental in sort of unlocking the sports program in Medfield. His name was Pete Kenny. I hired him as a sports producer. He fell. He was a middle-aged guy who retired house painter, was injured, loved Boston sports, loved his community. He really transformed the program. Pete passed away in 2011 after I moved on, but I feel like every community that I work in, I'm always looking for my Pete Kenny. I know that somebody is here, loves sports, loves the community, and just sees the value in that. So moving on, I worked in Easton Community Access TV for 12 years. Easton's like a very bucolic place, very beautiful, very green. I worked right across from the Governor Ames estate. I built it from the ground up. I built a volunteer and producer base. I built the operation into a 4-channel TV station. It was an amazing experience. Again, getting to meet people, work on these things, bring out creativity, help getting people's voices out there that don't get out there. It's just exciting. It's a blessing to be able to do it. But in the fall of 2020, COVID rules really prevented parents from attending sporting events, sometimes at home games, but almost all away games, and certainly those that are indoors. So I helped catalyze a group of community media centers, of which Easton, or Oliver Ames High School, was part of, called the Hockomock League. And we decided to make a dedicated effort to share our videos between our centers. Our live streaming grew exponentially, and we were able to adapt and find a way to connect with the community using the tools that we have. Framingham's a little different. I started here in the spring of 2022. I was elated because I moved here before I got the job here. And again, I'm just so grateful to the board of directors for believing in me and giving me this opportunity. Terry's around. Thank you. One of the things that I inherited was a lot of tradition, a lot of sports, a lot of producers, a lot of personalities. And certainly one of those institutions, at least at the time, was TBA basketball. And I didn't really know what a big deal it was when I started, but I do now. And I thought that just to close the loop on that, one of my interns right now played TBA, and he learned about Access Framingham through his experience at TBA. So I'm going to sort of change directions a little bit and go through a bit of the history, I think, that leads up to Community Access TV. It means a lot to me, but I also think that it is just a remarkable technology, and it's just remarkable that it even exists. So it's a common joke in our industry that cable access is a dinosaur. It's irrelevant. You hear that from academics, journalists, filmmakers, and many, though thankfully not all, politicians. We had recently signed our contract with the city to extend our services, and we're sort of excited to be able to continue to do that. I'm really here to challenge that notion that we're irrelevant. Local media matters, regardless of the form that it takes on. I think the fact that there is a space in a community like Framingham and all over Massachusetts that exists for sharing information and voices over wires across a geography to the local landscape is absolutely miraculous. So I just want to take you through my own personal, I guess, history of what led us here. So, starting at the beginning, um, you know, we all deal with video so much on our phones, on our TVs. It's really something that we're drawn to. And I really feel that human beings are hardwired to find meaning in flickering lights. The cave paintings brought these images to life. And I think that that is really in the back of our brains. And experiments with shadows, light, and movement, have been fascinating humanity ever since. Um, so I just want to keep that nugget, and we can move on here to photography. This mechanical invention of the Industrial Revolution learned how to capture reality in a new way. It was a portable piece of equipment, and it allowed, again, people to represent themselves in a way that human beings really never had before. And certainly, photography leads to film. When you take the photographs and you put them in a sequence, your brain perceives that there are motion pictures. And what I have here is an image of a film from 1896 from the Lumiere brothers called The Arrival of a Train. Part about that being hardwired is that when this film was first projected, people ran out of the theater. They hid under their chairs. So the next big invention that kind of informs our journey here is radio. Radio is a miraculous communication system. Again, this is what provides a real-time transmission. This is not film that needs to be developed. It's something that happens in real time. And of course, it was with dots and dashes and voice, but it was the first true mass media. And we'll return to mass media in just a minute. So in the early 20th century, television kind of merged these things together. What's meaningful to me is that it combines the images and sounds transmitted in real time. The only piece that's missing here that leads us to cable access is really the portability of it. I think when people think of the early days of TV, they think of things like this, a lot of process, very expensive, highly produced. But in the late 60s, the Sony Portapak was introduced. And this is a pioneering video recording system that really democratized video production. It allowed individuals to easily capture and review footage outside of the traditional studio settings. It had a significant impact on the culture as a tool of art, activism, independent voices. In some ways for me, it's really the Big Bang. It gave rise to YouTube, TikTok, and all these different things. Smartphones. The idea, these things, you don't think they have a history. They have a history. And so the Portapak is one of the central pieces of equipment that was part of that history. Of course, when you start with Portapaks, they still weren't cheap. They were still pretty expensive. So what happened in the early 70s was that video collectives formed around the country. And these were groups of people that would use the tools for activism, getting people's messages out there. As you can see from the image on the left, there's a collective called Video Freaks. And again, holding truth to power, using the camera as a way to create social change. The image on the right is from a different collective called TV, Top Value Television. In 1972, the TV crew went to the Republican National Convention, and they got behind the scenes footage, the footage that you did not see on TV on the main channels. This is a still image of Ron Kovic from the Born on the 4th of July, captured by the TV crew. But of course, for me, as an art school student, video unleashed in a creative revolution as well. And so we could go on and on about what happened and all the different artists, but if I had to represent one to you, his name would be Nam June Paik. He experimented with the form in ways that were way ahead of its time. He envisioned what he called a global groove, like a live streaming party around the world connected by satellites. This piece right here is called a video. If you have ever held a camera and pointed it at a TV, you kind of get this feedback loop. You know, that that just didn't exist, you know? And you know, he was able to capitalize on that. And if you're interested, I would say look him up on YouTube. His work is just absolutely incredible. And he also did a lot of work with WGBH in Boston, which was kind of at the forefront of the medium at the time. Moving forward, trying to get back to where I was going with the cable access thing, one of the collectives that was formed was called the Alternative Media Center. In New York City, they began to teach classes and developed a blueprint for what would become public access TV. It was two people, Red Burns, along with George Stoney, who were the pioneers of this effort. George Stoney is often referred to as the father of public access TV. He was a documentary filmmaker. He worked on educational films, and he saw that independent media could really make an impact on the community. He said, we look on cable as a way of encouraging public action, not just access, he said. It's how people can get information to their neighbors and their neighbors can get out on the streets to organize. So the work of George Stoney and the video collectives and all that is just terrific, right? But there needs to be legal and political mechanisms in place in order to establish from the independent video artists, the video collectives, to create these public access spaces. Contrary to popular belief, Comcast does not give us a studio out of the kindness of their heart. They have a legal obligation to provide the city of Framingham with the funding to support community media. That's why we exist. So I just want to briefly go through some of the landmark legislations that helped bring us to this point. All right. So the first one is the Communications Act of 1934. This harkens back to our radio conversation, our mass media conversation. It established the government agency called the Federal Communications Commission. Currently, it's on the chopping block. This established regulations on interstate and foreign communication by wire and radio. It was given the power to grant licenses for broadcast and allocate spectrum for frequency, because certainly with radio, there's only a limited amount of bandwidth or space where radio can travel. So they needed a central system in order to allocate that frequency. And the last part of the main points of the Communications Act was that it had a provision for the public wanting to use medium to support the public interest. What a novel idea. So then we've got the fast forward, I guess, to the Cable Communications Policy Act of 1984. So this really established the regulations that specifically ensured a provision for public access. It established what they call the local franchise agreement, which in essence gives the community, the town, the municipality, the right to negotiate with a cable company to deliver their services. Because obviously, we all know this, we all hate to see it, but there's telephone poles, there's wires, they're all strung up all over the place. If there weren't rules, it would be even worse. So the city, the municipality has the ability to negotiate that license and those rules. And part of that agreement, with that franchise agreement, is to a portion of the revenue from that cable company goes to the municipality. In Framingham, it works so that 5% of the gross revenue of cable subscribers comes to the city. That is then divided up between what they call PEG, which is a public education and government access TV. And Access Framingham is the public and education arm of that. The government access it lives at City Hall, so they're separate. So then the next piece of legislation, the last piece, second to last, that I want to talk about is the Telecommunications Act of 1996. This act came into existence around the same time that the internet was becoming more prolific. It really had some negative implications that I don't know if at the time they knew, but it kind of fostered or enabled companies to consolidate media. I mean, now it kind of, you imagine these big, huge companies, but at the time there were all these little cable TV stations in all these different communities, and they got swallowed up by these bigger companies that had wanted to keep kind of a hand's distance from the local control. You know, in Massachusetts, we're such a provincial place, every community needs to negotiate with Comcast and Verizon, and that's great for the communities, but the Comcast lawyers are tired. You know, they have to go, they don't want to do that. Sort of like taking that framework that I just went through about the cable legislation, and I bring it over to Massachusetts, to the Commonwealth. You may not know this. A lot of people don't know this. Massachusetts is really the end of the rainbow when it comes to cable access. Because there is a strong tradition of local government and community engagement, municipalities in Massachusetts have like actively utilized the provision of cable access and franchise fees to negotiate favorable franchises with. So public access TVs in Massachusetts grew from the mid 70s, beginning in places like Amherst and Somerville. And I want to take a minute, I guess, to look at a little bit more about Framingham. Now, I have some, I'll admit it, that I have a few gaps here. Don't have a full-on history of Framingham cable access, so I just want to be aware of that. I do know that it's a long and winding road. I will say that. And I think that people with vision, like Bill, have helped to establish an independent local cable access. But before it was independent, it was a Cablevision run studio. It was a small studio located around the corner in Framingham Center. It was bought by AT&T, and then it was bought by Comcast. Then the offices moved to Burr Street. But in 2006, it transitioned into a nonprofit organization. The first location as a nonprofit was the old Fuller Middle School, which I did not see personally, but people have told me, everybody who knows, that the master control, the heart of the computer that actually broadcast the channel out to the community was in a group shower at the Fuller Middle School. I just wanted to share a couple of faces from some of the historical programs on cable access. I know Jack is here, and who's an active producer as well. You know, but I know that people think fondly about some of these older programs, and I will say that the person on the right there, Francesca Harris, I don't know if you know her, but she's been with cable in Framingham for many, many, many years. She was generous in getting me a little bit of this information, and so I think I just want to acknowledge that her role in shepherding cable in Framingham. People tell me Framingham Trivia was an awesome program. We also, in addition to the work of some of the more recent ancient stuff, we also archive some of the older stuff. We're really the only place that's a digital archive for the community. So we have a few thousand videos that are up on a website called the Internet Archive that are all historical videos from Framingham. And this one is obviously one of the older ones, but a lot from about the late 80s till now. Like I said, there's thousands of videos about Framingham. Some are individuals programs, some are community events, some are political talk shows. You know, we have some discretion. We don't have to put everything on the Internet Archive. You know, we have kind of an obligation on the cable access channel to air what people provide us. And I know that it's just very different than what we're able to do with our content online. I wanted to dive into some of the numbers, get into some of the franchising fee and funding facts that directly influence what Access Framingham can do and what we need to do in order to thrive. So I'm sure this graph might be kind of small and hard to see, you all probably know that less people subscribe to cable now than they did before. 2007, in fact, was the peak year for cable subscribers, and the subscriber count has been declining since then. The term cord cutter or digital native, these are common terms now. I understand people don't have cable, and for them, sometimes local media matters even more, because if you cut the cord, what do you have? Facebook groups? That's your community? More than 90% of our budget has historically come from the cable companies. So through this 5% agreement, we have been fortunate enough to be able to establish an organization. And that number of 90% is decreasing because we are taking an active role in diversifying our revenue as well, which I'll talk about some of our initiatives in a little bit. I just want to also be clear that the franchise funding that funds cable is not a real estate tax. It is not a municipal tax. It is a pass-through. That is, the money from the cable companies comes to the city, and then it comes to us. It is not as though there is an extra tax on the consumer. And I can assure you that if you did not have a little line item on your cable bill that said franchise fee, the cable company would find a way to get that other $1.50 from you each month. The lag in cable revenue started in 2018. Subscriber counts were declining, but the rates were increasing. After that point, subscriber decline began to outpace rate increases. So again, our funding is in jeopardy. Transition from the bad to hopefully the good. We are aware that cable funding is decreasing. And you can call us a dinosaur, but in reality, I did a little research, dinosaurs evolved into birds, right? Birds adapt. So we're going to adapt. All right. I just wanted to kind of show off our new logo, our new Access Framingham logo. You'll see that around. I have made it my intention that Access Framingham is a resource and tool for the community. The amount of volunteers and community interaction from individuals has been decreasing. And I understand that. People have phones, they shoot videos, they don't need to come into a TV studio. The idea of having a TV show is not as important as it was when you can broadcast from your house. I get that. But we proactively reach out to people. We try to find people's voices that aren't being heard and bring them into the studio, or at least make them aware that they can use this resource to help get their message out there. By the numbers here, in 2024, Access Framingham produced 190 hours of original programming. And in terms of the resources that we have, if you haven't been to the studio, I invite you anytime. My door is always open. We have an amazing TV studio. I would say one of the best TV studios in the Metro West area, with really high-end broadcast equipment. And we teach people how to use it. You can get a college education for pennies if you hang around Access Framingham long enough. And production coordinator, camera guy, Corey Lamont. I told you you'd be in there. Thank you. One of our newest spaces is a podcast studio. We know how popular podcasts are. Because we're a TV company, we emphasize people doing like video podcasts, but we also just offer audio podcasts. So if you want to shoot the breeze with somebody, you want to talk sports, you want to talk anything, you want to talk movies, we have this podcast studio available for you. Again, if I didn't mention, we're a membership-based organization. So as a member, you get access to this equipment and training and support. Podcasts are cool. They're fun. Even the superintendent has one. One of our biggest emphases I put on the organization is working with youth, working with different organizations in the city that support youth, like Hoops and Homework and I Believe Academy, but also with some of the obviously bigger institutions like the public schools. I think I had mentioned before that we are kind of located across Route 9 from Framingham State, and we've been developing a very strong partnership with their communications program. It's like an internship pipeline. It's been fantastic for the students. It's been great for us. We have a good relationship with Mass Bay. If you come to the office next week, you'll see one of our co-op students from Keefe Tech who comes every other week to do graphic design and animation with us. Again, it's a fantastic place to be. Due to the nature of the work being highly computer-based and specialized, I have found that it's a great opportunity for like some neurodiverse kids that might not find their way into another kind of internship to kind of get a lot out of it. I had a kid in Easton. All he wanted to do was make movie posters. I said, all right, well, make a movie poster of every show we do. And he got a portfolio out of it. And, we got some wall art. Now, the Framingham Public Schools is kind of a separate entity. We actually have 2.5 employees that work at the high school. What we have done in the past year at Framingham High School with our media program has been nothing short of transformative. We have a completely new staff there. We have cleaned up the studio. We have re-engaged with the students. Framingham Flyer News has a long history. It's a amazing program, and we're bringing it back. Where we're working really hard to again give those kids the opportunities that they need to succeed and to move on, and to use their experiences at with Access Framingham as a springboard to a career. I just wanted to give you a breath of like kind of the partnerships that we're involved in. I make every effort to work with different organizations. Sometimes I consider myself or ourselves like a social service organization that uses media. So basically, anytime that an organization meets us or sees us, I try to do some sort of intake session. What's your goals? What do you want to do? What can you get out of this? What are your pain points? And every organization obviously is a little bit different, but that's what makes working here in Framingham and Access Framingham so great. I just wanted to also show you about some of our flagship initiatives as I wrap this up. The first one is called The Frame. It's a Framingham News in Focus. It's a weekly news program that we put on our channel every day at 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. We also put it on YouTube and social, of course. I actually found out yesterday, I didn't know this, that YouTube is the most visited website in the world. Makes sense. And then just a testament to our team and how many story segments we've produced in the past year and a half. Another initiative that we are in the midst of is a film festival. I had mentioned before how much I enjoyed working with film festivals and how they're a way to bring the community together. So we had a film festival in 2024 in November. The two images on the right are just people that are watching films, listening to the filmmakers. It was a great event. It was at the Village Hall. We had 3 blocks of films, most of them from the Metro West area. There were some from farther reaches. There was a couple international films. There were workshops and networking opportunities for filmmakers in the Metro West area. And it was so successful, we're going to make it a 2-day festival this year. So it's going to be November 7th and 8th, and it's open call for entries. Right, so if you have a kid or a grandkid or a nephew or a niece, somebody that has a YouTube channel or a TikTok channel who wants to maybe try to make their first film, this is a great opportunity for them. And of course, they can become a member of Access Framingham and get access to all the cool equipment as well. One last piece of legislation that I want to mention. I'm glad that Massachusetts is not taking the decline in cable sitting down. So we've been actively pushing for a legislation that would be an act to modernize funding for community media. That is, holding the streaming companies accountable for all the bandwidth that they use on the same wires that the cable companies use. It's a tough sell on Beacon Hill. We've been trying to do it for a while. It has been implemented in other states around the country, so it's not as though Massachusetts was the first, but we could certainly use your support. If you want to know a little bit more about this, you can certainly talk with me. I'd be happy to provide you more information. I don't want to get too political, but all of our local reps have co-signed on this. They see the value of community media as well. So I guess in closing, to end where I started, local media matters. This may be a little tough to read, so I'll read it. Healthy and thriving communities need community media. It's Access Framingham that anchors a trusted, accessible local information system. Access Framingham has a mission-driven commitment to support people's voices throughout Framingham. And Access Framingham is Framingham's only independent, community-owned communications platform ever. And if we go away, I almost guarantee you won't have another. So we certainly ask for your support, become a member, find out more information. We've kind of toyed around with this tagline that Access Framingham is the heart of the conversation. Not sure where we are on that, but kind of feels right. So thank you for everything. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
If you can share with me if the local administration or the current administration has any impact upon your activities.
You mean the local municipality or the government?
The federal administration.
Okay, well, I mean, we exist because of regulation, and the administration is certainly not a fan of regulation. So I would say no. Clearly a no. So, we have some, there's an umbrella organization for the country called the Alliance for Community Media. So we do push for legislation to protect community media, to protect independent media. Actually, Senator Markey is one of the most vocal advocates for public media and public access. We're really not sure where we're going to get. The current chair of the FCC, Brandon Carr, is hellbent on deregulation.
My name is Russ Darnley. So if I understand you correctly, you're supported by funds via Comcast, but this is underwritten or supported by regulation, and you think that given the current administration's animus against any type of regulations, you are at risk. Is that correct?
We are at risk. I do also believe that Massachusetts has a strong firewall to try to help municipalities at least retain some control over their own destiny, if you will. But yes, part of the reason we're doing these different initiatives and trying to move more towards a membership model, and also I didn't mention business sponsorships and other kind of grant work, is to truly find a way to diversify our revenue in a major way, because it's the only way we're going to survive long term.
Thank you, Jason, for talking to us. Could you tell us? You talked about the people who can use the facilities and learn. Could you, number one, tell us the stations that people can watch? This is a local TV station.
Yeah.
And also maybe some of the programming that we have.
I had mentioned Comcast predominantly, but we're on Verizon and RCN, and especially RCN Channel 3, but also RCN HD Channel 1100. That actually has an electronic program guide, which is something that most communities actually don't have. Our wizard engineer, Glenn Axelrod, put that in place. We're also on Channel 9 on Comcast and Verizon Channel 43. Some of our programs that are kind of regularly scheduled programs, I would actually say they're dwindling. We don't have as many people that are making consistent programming, indefinitely. We do have people like Dave Hornfisher and Audrey Hall that continue to make programs. We have a group of young college students who are making a program called The Spectrum. They're all on the autism spectrum. And the whole crew and they kind of talk about video games and movies and all that kind of stuff. And, they've made Access Framingham kind of their second home as well. Sometimes I just expect, or I'm getting to expect, that somebody comes in, they want to make one thing, or they want to make a couple things. They're not going to make a a program indefinitely. So, when those happen, we're excited and we support them, but it's really also pushing through with some of our partnerships. Jack Barron has done a program for a long time. Bill has done programs for a long time, but Bill is the videographer emeritus. Is that right? He's kind of pushing his way. So we're all sad about that. I mean, we do have our weekly news program, called The Frame. And if nothing else, please check out the Frame website too, theframe.news. We put out videos and articles every week. We have like a 10-minute podcast that you can listen to with some news, what's in municipal happenings, some of the bigger events in the city. We do a weekly feature on different organization or business or individual. We also broadcast the news in Portuguese as well. And we also have a community calendar, which actually is a really fantastic resource. We're trying to really push this. It harvests events from all over Framingham and all different organizations, and it really can be a go-to spot to find out things that are happening in Framingham. It's free to submit events as well if you want to get involved and start to use the calendar as well. I might as well say also that the Frame is also available on Spotify and SoundCloud as a podcast too. So we're trying to get out there in as many ways as possible with some of our initiatives.
Jason, thank you very much for coming today. Couple of suggestions. First of all, I think you really should work to be able to take local advertising, even if you're secluded to maybe within 10, 15 miles of where your station is based. I mean, when you talk about how do you increase revenue in the media industry, that's one of the biggest ways. Secondly, I find, the newspaper industry has diminished greatly throughout the country. And there is a place for local news, local blogs, things like that brings, to this area. But one thing, I don't know if you're legally allowed to do, but I think it would be great if you could do some investigative reporting, put some students together. Oh, he's saying no. I just think that would be great if you got some students and stuff and said, let's investigate why this building is condemned and it's still sitting here unoccupied. How do we get it torn down? Things like that.
Yeah, thank you for those suggestions. The one thing I will say about investigative journalism is that it's very resource intensive, and we don't have those journalists on staff. If you know of anybody that has worked in a newspaper for a long time that want to keep their hands busy, tell them to come by. It's fun, I promise. But that's probably the kind of thing we need to really turn some sort of investigative journalism on. Is somebody that is from the industry that has that level of experience. But I assure you that if we had somebody like that within the system, we would be able to just pull students from Framingham State. Like we would be able to really do something important. But thank you for that suggestion.
Any other questions?
Our advertising model kind of operates more like PBS with sponsorships. But I will say that we've made kind of it's clearly delineated that what we put on the web is different than what we put on the cable channel, and that, advertising can flow to our web presence and not our cable presence. So, I mean, that is something we're looking at pretty seriously.
One thing you could really consider, because if you think about it, GBH does this, sponsorships. That's not advertising.
Right.
I mean, you're not advertising a product. It's just a company sponsoring some time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is definitely where we're at, like literally right now. So thank you for that. If you don't live in Framingham, you can go to our website, accessfram.tv. We do have a live stream. You access Framingham on YouTube, lots of our programming. So if you don't live in Framingham, there's still plenty of ways to still connect with what we're doing. So thanks for mentioning that.
Thank you all for coming. We hope to see you next month.